There is a major plot hole in the first Toy Story movie. I'm not typically the kind of guy who gets upset over plot holes. To me, when people on the internet complain about plot holes, it comes across like stupid CinemaSins-esque criticism meant to score cheap I am so smart points. But this isn't like that. You see, this plot hole is so large that upon examination with the intent to answer the big question it raises with some sort of theory, it blows open the entire movie's central conceit. Toy Story is a film that suggests that when humans aren't around, toys come to life, organizing little societies inside the bedrooms of their owners, with their sole intention being to bring them joy. The problem is, when Buzz Lightyear arrives in Andy's bedroom with Woody and the gang, he doesn't believe he's a toy. He believes himself to be the actual Buzz Lightyear, thinking that this is a strange planet. It takes most of the film for Buzz to realize the truth. So what's the plot hole? This is.
It makes me hungry. What would you say to dinner at, Pizza Planet?
If Buzz Lightyear doesn't think he's a toy, then why does he freeze whenever he's seen by a human? My name is Spookydood, and as I said, what started as a simple question led to a deep examination of the mechanics and inner biological structures of toys, research on philosophies regarding human nature, and lots of Toy Story media. This is Toy Story Cognitohazard Theory. We need to start by establishing how important this question actually is. Yes, it would be easy to suggest that perhaps there is an easy in-universe explanation for this phenomenon. For example, maybe toys automatically freeze when humans are around. There is, after all, evidence to suggest this. In the original script for the first Toy Story movie, when Sid plays the claw machine game and grabs the alien on the top of Buzz Lightyear, as soon as Buzz is revealed within the pit of aliens, he goes stiff. In regards to this incident, the original script says, "Positioned with his back to Sid, the alien is lifted up by the claw. With the alien gone, Buzz's upper torso becomes exposed, forcing the Space Ranger to freeze. Sid suddenly spots Buzz." This suggests that it's either human sight that forces a toy to freeze, or alternatively simply being exposed with the possibility of being seen that forces them to freeze. What's interesting is the wording here. Buzz's upper torso becomes exposed, forcing the Space Ranger to freeze. Therefore, this answer seems to be simple. Toy biology forces the toys to freeze whenever humans are around. Right? Well, not so fast, because while I'm sure that might be most people's answer at first glance, the movie itself goes to great lengths to show this isn't actually true. There are several moments throughout the Toy Story series where characters, in plain view of the humans, move. In Toy Story 1, Woody obviously moves in front of Sid, proving that the toys aren't forced to freeze near humans. Also, when they're entering Sid's house, when Woody thinks someone's coming, he tells Buzz and the alien, freeze, meaning it isn't an automatic response. It's something they do purposefully.
Got something for you, boy.
There are plenty of other examples throughout the series proving that the toys choose to freeze. This means that Buzz specifically chose to freeze during the events of Toy Story 1. Another alternative answer is that it can all be explained away using Buzz's Space Ranger logic. Perhaps Buzz thought Andy was an alien or a threat of some sort, or perhaps the reason he froze was simply because everyone else did too, and he figured it was some sort of survival instinct. Both of these answers would also seem to be wrong, though. We see that when Buzz witnesses Sid blowing up the combat Carl, he starts to move towards the window and says, "I'm going to teach that boy a lesson." Buzz sees no inherent logic-based reason to freeze in front of humans, as we also see when he's in Pizza Planet, or when he sits next to the driver of the Pizza Planet truck. Similarly, when sleeping next to Andy, we see that Buzz hasn't stayed frozen. He's shut his eyes and is sleeping naturally. So Buzz isn't forced to freeze by some unseen physical law, nor is he freezing because of some logic-based answer like he thinks Andy is a threat, or because of cultural norms. We also know that the toys see and remember everything that happened to them during the time they're frozen, as demonstrated several times throughout the series, as well as when Buzz tells the other toys, "It looks as though I've been accepted into your culture. Your chief, Andy, inscribed his name on me." So then, how could Buzz possibly not understand that he was a toy? He witnesses Andy playing with him, he knows Andy wrote his name on his boot. What's going on here? Well, to answer that question, I think we need to take a deep dive on toy biology. What is a toy? And by that I mean, what exactly are the toys in Toy Story? Okay, that's a silly question. They're toys. However, I don't think that's a good enough answer for our sake. In our world, the real world, there's a big difference between a toy and your childhood pet gerbil. They're both small and they're meant to entertain you, but if you smack the gerbil up against a wall, it's in for a pretty bad day. Toys are inherently lifeless. It's part of our understanding of the word toy. If, all of a sudden, a race of tiny mannequin-esque humanoids emerged from the New York sewers, we wouldn't go around calling them toys. We'd call them something else. So why, then, is Woody a toy? He is, after all, alive. We know that the toys can feel pain, but only sometimes. We know that they can't typically die, except sometimes they can. And we know that they are seemingly automatically aware of the world they live in and its rules, as well as their role in the overall hierarchy, except for when the first movie revolved around a character that didn't. So let's start simple. Toys can breathe and experience the 5 senses: smell, touch, taste, sight, and sound. Woody coughs after inhaling dust. Buzz gasps for air after his helmet opens. Rex says he couldn't breathe when he was in Andy's moving box. Buzz smells the garbage truck, and they obviously see, touch, and hear things. Before we get to taste, which is going to lead us to the great pooping debate, I do want to raise a point here. If the toys can breathe, does that also mean they can choke? Seemingly, yes, considering in Woody's nightmare in Toy Story 2, he is clearly seen choking, desperate for air. This could imply that toys can also suffocate. In Toy Story 1, Mr. Potato Head has Etch-a-Sketch draw a noose to threaten Woody. Does this imply, mixed with the knowledge that Woody can both breathe and choke, that hanging Woody would actually kill him? That Woody would just suffocate and die? What would even happen to a toy that dies? Would it just resume being a toy, but when all the other toys are awake, it's a lifeless corpse? Imagine being forced to coexist with the lifeless corpse of a toy that was once your friend. Or alternatively, what if that's what happened to Sid's toys? What if these toys, all of which were horribly dismembered and tortured to the extent that a human would not be able to survive from, are all toys that died? Obviously this seems false, as we see them all living and moving. But you know what we don't see them do? Speak. None of Sid's toys ever speak, just shuffle around and make very, very basic movements. This is really interesting, considering they're the only group of toys in the entire franchise to never speak. The side characters in Al's Toy Barn, they speak. The Sunnyside toys? Well sure, not all of them speak, but most do. So what if that's what happened here? What if Sid's toys are quote-unquote dead, and that's why they can't speak? There's a very interesting point to make here, but we're not ready for it just yet. I know it might sound like I'm going off the deep end already, but I promise we loop back to this point later. What about taste? Well, this leads us to an even deeper point. Can the toys from Toy Story take a dump? It would seem as if the toys cannot eat, reproduce, or defecate, as they have no inner biological structure, right? Well, not so fast. Like I said already, they have all 5 senses. And even excluding taste, the ability to hear implies that there is some way for a toy to interpret sound, which implies some sort of inner biological structure. Sure, that's a reach, but it's still worth mentioning. On the topic of taste, however, there are several instances throughout the series that prove that the toys can, in fact, taste. In Toy Story of Terror, Buzz tastes the ooze left by a lizard. In Toy Story 2, Bullseye licks the Cheeto dust off Al's fingers, and seems to be enjoying it. In the bloopers for Toy Story 2, Buzz says he ate a bean burrito for lunch. Woody and Buzz can be seen eating popcorn in an ad for Wally. But this idea that the toys eat isn't just for aesthetic reasons. As again, in the bloopers for Toy Story 2, Mrs. Potato Head says, "And here's some cheesy puffs in case you get hungry." Meaning Mr. Potato Head wouldn't just eat the cheesy puffs for the sake of it, he would eat them specifically because something inside his body is telling him to eat. Okay, I know this is sounding a bit silly. After all, if the toys needed to eat, wouldn't they have died already? We know in Toy Story 2 that Jessie, Bullseye, and the Prospector have been inside a box for a prolonged period of time, and in Toy Story 3 the toys have spent years in Andy's toy box. It would seem as if they're not required to eat. But they enjoy it. So okay, they eat, but we know there's nothing to digest food with in their bodies. There's no way that food goes any further than that, right? Well, think again. You see, as much as this may sound like the moment I jumped the shark, I'm going to suggest that the toys in Toy Story not only have fully functional digestive systems, but they can poop. At least, logic indicates that they can. I'm not going to drag this out for much longer. I'm sure you guys are starting to scratch your heads wondering if this is some kind of joke, but there is a point to all of this. Just stick with me. In the bloopers at the end of Toy Story 2, Stinky Pete farts, Buzz burps and says, "I don't remember eating that." Similarly, in the first Toy Story movie, when Woody is asking the toys in Andy's room to help from Sid's house next door, he accidentally reveals Buzz's severed arm, sending Rex into a disgusted fit in which he vomits. We don't actually see anything come out, but he specifically says he's going to be sick before puking off screen. So we know that toys can eat, can puke, can fart, can burp, which begs the question, how is this physically possible? Well, and this might sound surprising considering all of the lengths I've just gone to prove that they can in fact poop, but I don't think that's actually the question worth being raised here. Obviously, there will never be a satisfying answer to this. The simple fact is, the filmmakers put in these references as nothing more than gags. Bullseye doesn't have to go and digest that Cheeto dust, and we don't have to understand where it's even went after he licked it up, considering he doesn't have a real throat. That's not what's important here, because this isn't a video on biology or the physical properties of the toys from Toy Story. The first question raised was why Buzz freezes when Andy plays with him. This is a behavioral study. The real evidence here isn't that toys can physically eat or defecate. The real interesting takeaway is that they do. They believe that they're going to be sick after seeing something that, truthfully, is really only disgusting when a human being does it. Mr. Potato Head can remove his arms just fine, but the second Buzz does, it's some abomination? Woody's arm comes clean off in the second movie, stuffing exposed, and the toys treat it like a routine issue that can be fixed quite simply. When you stop and think about it, there's several quote-unquote plot holes like this, where toys respond to certain things in ways that a human being would, and other times where they respond to things in ways that make sense for their being a toy. And this is where we start to hone in on the answers to our questions. You see, I think I know why Buzz believed himself to be a space ranger, and yet still acted like a toy when necessary. It's the same reason that Rex vomits, the same reason that Woody is in severe pain when he's burned in Sid's house, but is barely affected by his arm being ripped off in the second movie. It's because, internally, every toy is really comprised of multiple different sort of existences, all at war with one another, pushing and pulling to take control of their consciousness. Underneath every toy is an inherent sense of self, based not on their surroundings, but by the image that they represent. Woody is a cowboy. Cowboys are human beings. Hence, Woody will react accordingly when he is burned. He'll react as a cowboy would. When put in a tough situation, Woody will oftentimes act like a cowboy, using his pull string as a lasso and more. It's why Jessie screams "Yee-haw" frequently, because underneath everything she is a cowboy. Rex wants to learn to scream and be more frightening like a dinosaur, and we see him manage to produce a terrifying guttural roar after Buzz teaches him how. Bo Peep's sheep don't speak, they just make noises that sheep would. The Green Army Men's entire existence is based off of army lingo and stereotypes. Similarly to how they act in Buzz Lightyear canon as shown in Buzz Lightyear of Star Command, the little green men talk in unison. So, every toy has a sort of psychological imprint that lies dormant underneath everything, based on whatever it is they're representing. On top of that is a second layer, though, the one that allows them to exist within toy society. The sort of knowledge that sits on top of that basic biological instinct and tells them reality. That's what every toy in Toy Story is, a balance between instincts and knowledge. This is actually similar to how human beings work as well, except if you or me were born as a cowboy rather than, a baby. The only instincts we have at birth are our basic human instincts, but the toys are different. They come with the instincts of that which they represent. That knowledge, however, is what allows Woody to hold staff meetings with the other toys, what allows them to not freak out at the sight of Woody's arm being ripped off, what allows them to see themselves as toys in a world belonging to humans. In Toy Story 1, the problem is that Buzz Lightyear's instincts take over for most of the movie. The second that he realizes he's a toy, he doesn't start to question everything he's believed. It's almost as if deep down, he's known all along. He opens up his arm compartment and peels off the sticker. He sees the Made in Taiwan logo. He knows that pressing his button repeats a voice line said in the commercial. He just didn't want to believe it. Those instincts were what was driving him to this point. But how? Well, in human beings, those instincts often kick in during a moment of extreme stress. They're called fight or flight responses. In situations where we're in extreme danger, oftentimes our survival instincts kick in and take over. Haven't you ever heard of stories where a mother performs a feat of extreme strength to save her child, or a person is able to run for very, very absurd distances to escape danger? Those are instances of survival instincts taking over. This is exactly what happened in Toy Story 1. But wait, you say, Buzz was only ever really in danger after he finds out he's a toy, when Sid's gonna blow him up, right? No. The entire film, Buzz is in survival mode. When Woody says, "Look, Buzz, an alien," even though he knows Woody is mocking him, he freaks out and turns around. When Woody first shows up, the first thing he does is jump and try shooting him with a laser. When Woody opens his helmet, he starts gasping for air out of fear that he won't be able to breathe. Prior to finding out the truth about being a toy, Buzz believes he's stranded on an uncharted planet, unable to reach Star Command, and he's the only person who can stop an evil emperor from blowing up planets. Imagine how anxiety-inducing that would be. No wonder the entire time Buzz is freaking out, and those survival instincts kicked in. This is where the title of the video comes in. Toy Story's world is based around entities that entirely change their state of mind once presented with a cognitohazard. The term cognitohazard is not an actual word in the dictionary. It was popularized by the SCP Foundation, and it refers to something that poses a danger to any subject that perceives of it with one of the 5 senses. Not only is it a cognitohazard, though, what I'm talking about here is specifically a memetic cognitohazard, which the SCP Foundation website describes as infectious information, a piece of data in a subject's mind that has an anomalous effect on the subject's physical or mental state that is spread when anyone else becomes aware of that same information. This is what's happening in Toy Story. They are born with natural instincts based on what they're meant to be, but the knowledge that they are a toy is a memetic cognitohazard. Now let it be known. I know that cognitohazard is a made-up term, so there really aren't any rules, but I would say this isn't an awfully contagious memetic cognitohazard. The instincts that I spoke about on any given toy allow them to ignore the knowledge that they're a toy. We see this with Buzz in Toy Story 1, who only finally realizes it when presented with absolute proof. The Toy Story world is a world in which instincts are suppressible only after being presented with the knowledge that you're a toy. Need more proof? Well, look no further than a character I truly despise and wish wasn't part of this franchise, Forky. In Toy Story 4, Bonnie makes Forky. Then, when Bonnie puts Forky in her backpack, he comes to life in the way we can only assume the toys also do. So let's use our brains here. Based on what I've previously said, Forky will have those 2 sides as well, right? The instincts that are based on whatever he's made from, and the knowledge that'll allow him to exist in toy society? Does the movie demonstrate those 2 aspects? Yes, absolutely, 1000%. Throughout the beginning of the film, Forky only says one word: trash. Because Forky believes he's garbage. He barely even thinks at all, he just tries to throw himself in the trash over and over and over. Why? Well, in his own words, he thinks that trash is warm and cozy and safe. That, to me, sounds like instinct based on the fact that he's made of garbage. You need more proof? When the toys ask Woody why he's throwing himself in the garbage over and over, Woody says, because he's made from trash. That right there seems to be definitive proof that whatever you are made in the image of, or whatever you are made from, it leaves a psychological imprint on you. Forky lacks the knowledge that most toys have. Woody has to teach him what friends are, has to teach him to be Bonnie's friend, and only then does Forky start to understand how toy society works. I think this, too, is evidence in my favor. Buzz inherently recognizes human concepts like friendship because he's based on a human being, while Forky does not because he has zero concept of anything that human beings would know, outside the context of trash. This could circle back to our earlier point, that the toys in Sid's house might actually be dead. You see, when entering the house, Woody says, "We're gonna die." How would a toy die? Unless, of course, there was some way to destroy those 2 concepts that I believe drive every toy, both its instincts and its knowledge. What is the primary method of torture used by Sid? Not blowing them up, but taking apart and combining multiple toys. All of the toys in Sid's house don't speak, nor do they have distinct personalities, and I believe it's because by swapping their parts around, they've effectively been killed. The baby spider thing doesn't have the instincts of either a baby nor a spider. It's no longer one specific toy, its identity is the thing that has been erased. Because, as this theory states, identity is what's at the core of every toy. It's the thing that keeps them living, and it's driven by 2 factors, instincts and knowledge. As for our opening question, I think with this knowledge it's pretty easily answerable. The reason that Buzz freezes even though he believes he's a toy is because of the way a toy's instincts work. As I've said, a toy has primal instincts, and then on top of that, the knowledge of them being a toy. But after they figure out that they're toys, we see them manage to immediately fit into society, understanding how to play their role perfectly and desiring to please their owners, so to speak. In my opinion, the knowledge of them being toys, the cognitohazard as I've described, activates a second set of instincts, those of a toy. The second Buzz realizes he's not a space ranger. While those instincts still exist, and he'll still shout to infinity and beyond from time to time, a secondary set of instincts, a secondary set of rules to life, has been activated. Suddenly he sees the value in making Andy happy, he understands the importance of order and structure in toy society, and he is a completely different person. Even before that second set of instincts is activated, though, they're still there. In Toy Story 1, the reason that Buzz freezes while Andy plays with him is because those secondary instincts, while dormant, take over. Because toys in Toy Story are comprised of 2 sets of instincts, one based on whatever they're made to look like, one based on the concept of being a toy. That second set of senses lies dormant until they are presented with the cognitohazard, the knowledge that they are a toy. So this seems like a pretty conclusive theory. An explanation on how toys work in Toy Story that actually covers all of their behaviors without any plot holes. A battle between two inner senses, the underlying instincts and a secondary set of instincts, the knowledge that you're a toy, that only activates, so to speak, after being presented with the aforementioned cognitohazard, the indisputable fact that you are, in fact, a toy. While those secondary instincts can take over from time to time, like when Buzz freezes while Andy plays with him, they lie dormant underneath the primal instincts of a toy, allowing for easy explanations like, oh, that's quite a big alien there, I might as well freeze, or something to that effect, to allow themselves to sort of not worry about it in their own mind. Well, this was a crazy video. I really wanted to make this because as soon as I had the idea that, it's sort of like a cognitohazard, as soon as you realize you're a toy, you completely change, I thought, man, that would make for a pretty fun video. I just hope that people enjoy it. I'm concerned that people are going to see this and think, what, first 6, 7 theory, then this, like, what is going on here? I hope you don't think this is too crazy. I really enjoyed making this one. I enjoyed fast-forwarding through all the Toy Story movies to make sure that that there wasn't anything against my theory. I had a great time writing it. I think that obviously you're not going to get any of the filmmakers, in a video call where you could say, hey, look at this theory. Is this what was intended? I'm sure that they'd say no. But I do think to some extent there has to be some kind of internal logic within Pixar as to how it works, right? Some kind of understanding of, what it all is. And I think that even if there is no answer necessarily, it's still fun to theorize in the context of the world as if there was an answer. And so that's my answer, that toys have two sets of instincts that, the second one only takes over after being presented with the knowledge that you're a toy. I hope you enjoyed it. My name is Spookydood. Please make sure to like and subscribe. If you watched my recent mascot horror video, you will see that I had said there is a big announcement coming today, and honestly, that big announcement isn't ready yet. So look forward to that big announcement with the next video. Thank you so much for watching. My name is Spookydood, and I will see you next time.